You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.
Hello and welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, brought to you by 90 Min. As ever, I'm your host, Harry Symeou, and on this edition, we're going to be reacting to a victory. Yes, a victory. Arsenal finally pick up their first win of the season in the Carabao Cup second round with a 6-0 thumping of West Bromwich Albion at the Hawthorns. I know that the opponent wasn't of the highest level. I know that West Brom made a number of changes, and so I want to get that caveat in first, early doors, so that people don't keep mentioning it throughout the live show. But, you know, I've not completely glossed over that. I've not, failed to acknowledge that. I know that that was the case. But there were lots of things to be pleased about from an Arsenal point of view. And we're going to get into those things, and we're going to be discussing the game as well as plenty of other things that you guys bring up in the chat over the course of the next 30 to 40 minutes. So really looking forward to this one, and looking forward to doing a podcast with, for the first time in a while, a smile on my face. First of all, thank you to all the guys that have messaged me over the last couple of hours. Of course, the Chronicles of a Gooner got a cheeky little mention in the build-up to the game on Sky Sports, which was fantastic. Obviously, Kevin Campbell was in the studio. He's been on the show a number of times, and we got a little shout out. So thank you so much, and it's nice to know that people are watching, which is great. So Arsenal 6-0 winners. West Bromwich Albion made 11 changes. I think it was 11 or 10, can't remember exactly. I think it was 11 changes to the side that played in the Championship at the weekend. Their manager made it clear that their priority is, of course, to get out of the Championship, to get back in the Premier League, and you can understand why they've seen that as a priority. But for me, it wasn't necessarily about Arsenal winning the game. It was about the manner in which Arsenal won the game. And, when we were talking about the game earlier on the preview show, when we were talking about it on Wednesday afternoon, one of the things I said was, actually, I don't really care how we win the game. I just wanted Arsenal to win, because such was the negativity around the club. Such was the kind of, what's the word? The feeling. It just, Arsenal needed to do something to lift the fans, but probably more importantly, lift the players, lift Mikel Arteta, lift some of those players who haven't been at their best just yet, who have had their early season disrupted by COVID in the case of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Alexander Lacazette. So it was just great to see so many of the people who have struggled really kind of hit it off tonight and almost kickstart their seasons. Obviously, I'd have taken any victory, but to win it the way we did was obviously mightily impressive. I must admit, when I said earlier on that it was going to be a really, really difficult game, I didn't envisage West Brom changing as many players as they did. Now, that might be me being naive, maybe show my lack of knowledge around the Championship and around West Brom's season so far, which is fair enough. But I thought we were in for a tough test tonight. I really did. I wondered about the team selection. I wondered about Serie Kolasinac playing as the left centre-back. I wondered about Mohamed Elneny coming back into the midfield. Obviously pleased to see Odergaard in the side. Talked repeatedly, actually, about how I believe Martin Odegaard can help bring the best out of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, particularly in games like that where we get where teams try and squeeze up against us, and that does leave space in behind. You've got the likes of Martin Odegaard who can pick a pass. Mohamed Elneny played a couple of really good passes in behind today, as did a few other players. Bukayo Saka was excellent as well. So, lots and lots of positives to take away from it. Clean sheet. I thought Aaron Ramsdale looked quite good. I know he didn't have a massive amount to do, but he made a couple of smart stops. Looked more comfortable than Bernd Leno does with the ball at his feet, although, it's a bit of a difficult game to really gauge his level from. I admit that. But look, let's enjoy it. I mean, I know it wasn't the glamour fixture. I know it wasn't the massive statement win in terms of the kind of message that it sends to people outside. But when I tweeted earlier on today where I said Arsenal needed to go out and make a statement. Well, a 6-0 win away from home is probably as good as you're going to get. So fair play to the team, fair play to the lads. And there's a couple of individuals that I really want to talk about in a little bit more detail. We'll bring you more reaction to the game as well over the next sort of 24 hours. If you haven't checked out the watch along, done a fantastic watch along earlier on with Mike Stavrou right here in the studio, which was great fun. So check that out if you want to go back and find the moments the goals went in. I think you'll enjoy it. We certainly did here in the studio. But before I go into some of the individual performances, before we talk a little bit deeper about Arsenal's win tonight, I just want to say a big welcome to Subigya, who's just signed up as a member of the Chronicles of a Gooner channel. Mate, thank you so much for your support. If you wish to become a member and support us to bring you more Arsenal and football related content, you can do so by clicking the join button below the screen if you're watching us on YouTube, or if you are listening via the audio, you can click on the link in the description. We'd love to have you, and I thank you all for your very, very kind support. So let's talk a little bit about, first of all, about the way Arsenal played and the kind of way we were set up. I talked about the fact that West Brom squeezed quite high up the pitch, and I think that was quite important in Arsenal actually being able to get the ball in behind and basically using Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang in the way that Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang wants to and needs to be used. We've talked a lot about him coming in from the left-hand side and how he's been a little bit isolated. We've talked a lot about how he's not really that effective when teams park the bus. And with West Brom pushing up the pitch, doing what they did, it was a game tailor-made for somebody like Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. He showed a good awareness of what was around him. I thought he timed his runs excellently to stay onside over and over again. He showed great instinct, particularly for the second goal, where the ball came to him off the post, didn't it? After Nicola Pepe's effort, the ball fell to him, but you have to be in the right place, don't you? As a striker, you have to be clever. You have to hang back a little bit the way he did, not follow the ball necessarily all the way into the back of the net. And I think he did really, really well. The first goal was a tap in. The second goal, very, very similar. But the third goal was trademark Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I'm talking about his third goal, coming in off that left-hand side in that half space, drifting in onto that right foot. And you knew the minute he got the ball and shifted it into that position, you knew exactly what he was going to do, but he still managed to find that top corner. And that was a man playing with lots and lots of confidence. I still think that there will be points this season where Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang will look ineffective. There will be certain fixtures against certain opponents who do sit that bit deeper where he's going to struggle a little bit. But what we've realized and what we've always said, and somebody asked me this question on one of the shows yesterday, if I could pick any Arsenal player to be one-on-one with the goalkeeper, who would I pick? And I said Aubameyang, because he's still a cold finisher. He is still the go-to guy in terms of Arsenal strikers. Now, Alexander Lacazette had a good season last season. He done really well in terms of linking up play with people. And we saw when he came on, he got a goal as well, but also played a really nice pass in behind, having come on the pitch for Nicola Pepe, I think it was, when he hit the crossbar. But I still think that Aubameyang, if used in the right way, is still Arsenal's best centre forward. And I've talked a lot about how, maybe it's time to move on from Aubameyang, that the tactical evolution of the side in terms of the way we play has almost seen him and Arsenal drift apart a little bit recently. But that was a reminder tonight, wasn't it, of what Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang can be, what he can do. And I think that we were right probably to say earlier on in the summer that the striker position probably isn't the priority right now. Because if you can find a way of extracting that from Aubameyang far more frequently than we did last season, if you can find a way of sharing that role between him and Lacazette, then we should score a fair amount of goals. Not sure I like Aubameyang from the left-hand side anymore. Talked about that quite a bit. But I also recognize that as good and as ruthless as he was tonight, there will be matches where teams don't push that far up the pitch, where there isn't that space in behind for him to exploit, which is what he's so good at doing, playing off the shoulder and doing that. And I recognize that it's kind of sometimes going to be horses for courses, and sometimes Aubameyang's not going to be that horse. and we have to recognize that. But as Peter says in the chat, service is what he needs to score. Some strikers are better at creating opportunities for themselves. Some strikers can still impact games without the service, but we've always known that Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is someone who, when given the service, will more often than not deliver. So great to see him back in form. Great to see him playing with a smile on his face. And a lot of us have talked about his commitment and questioned his commitment recently, and there's been a few incidents that have kind of led us to that. But I think when he scored that first goal, when Arsenal broke the deadlock, which you might argue was a little bit against the run of play at the time, it was great to see that kind of, it wasn't just a smile from Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. It was a real kind of, I can't explain this. How do I put this into words? You could just tell on his face that this goal really meant something to him, that it meant something to the team, that they got that first goal of the season, got that monkey off their back, and now they were in a place where they could move forward. So, you know, tonight could have easily gone south. Obviously, we were helped by the fact that West Brom made all of those changes. I mentioned that right at the top of the show. So anything we're saying has to be tempered by that. Anything we say has to have that caveat. But why can't, if a football fan cannot enjoy a 6-0 win away from home, then what is the bloody point in watching the game? Let's be honest. A couple of players I want to talk about outside of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Bukayo Saka was excellent, and I probably wouldn't have played him tonight. I thought that he looked out of sorts against Chelsea. I thought that he looked unfit, and I thought that he probably could have done with a rest, maybe more so than Emile Smith-Rowe. But he was excellent. You know, he was instrumental in so much of the good work Arsenal did. His tenacity, determination not to give the ball up led to the opening goal. Got his shot away. It was saved by the keeper, fell to Aubameyang, who turned it in. But that was a goal made by Bukayo Saka. Got one himself as well, which he finished expertly. Played a ball into Odergaard, continued his run, and then he finished it with his right foot as well. Interesting to see Bukayo Saka confident in using his right as well. But him and Aubameyang had a real good understanding tonight. It seemed like every time Aubameyang would go and make that run, Saka was already on the same wavelength, was already looking to release him. And Arsenal were a little bit more direct in that sense. Now, was it a tactical thing? Was it something that Arsenal have worked on? Get the service to Aubameyang earlier? I'm not sure. I've got to be honest. I'm not sure that I want to give him that much credit. I feel like they realized pretty early on that West Brom were squeezing quite high up the pitch, and it's something that, you know, just kind of naturally came about, and rightly so. You know, sometimes we talk a lot, don't we, about managers' instructions, but sometimes as players, you need to read the situation. You need to understand what's going on, and you need to be able to identify how you can expose a team. And I think Arsenal did that pretty quickly tonight, which was great. So Bukayo Saka, massive shout out for him. Fantastic and good to see him back and playing well. Because as I say, I thought he was a little bit under par at the weekend. I criticised him for not tracking back on either of the two goals and not helping out down that flank. But yeah, good to see him back and good to see him playing well. And then we talk about Martin Odegaard, because Martin Odegaard, I thought was really key tonight, but did it in a bit of a low-key way, if that makes sense. He dropped into deeper positions quite often tonight, got on the ball, played passes early, which it made me realise tonight quite a bit about the differences between him and Emile Smith-Rowe. I think Emile Smith-Rowe is more of a carrier of the ball. Emile Smith-Rowe will pick the ball up in midfield, sometimes on the half turn, and he'll carry the ball and he'll attack opponents that way. And then he'll look to kind of carry the ball, draw players in, if you like, and then release it. Bit like Jack Grealish does, where he carries the ball, takes a few strides, attracts the defenders in, and then he plays it right or plays it left, and picks someone out. But what Odegaard does is he's a little bit more of a passer. Picks the ball up, wants to pass it early, gets it back, plays it right, gets it back, plays it left, and he makes us tick a little bit more. So it's something very different to Emile Smith-Rowe, and it's why I've talked about them even playing in the same team. I know a lot of people are opposed to that, and a lot of people said when we signed him, this is going to hold back Emile Smith-Rowe. I don't think it is. I really don't think it is. I think that these are two players that we do have space for in the squad, and I'm delighted that we've brought him back. He made two beautiful flicks, two beautiful contributions in the lead up to a couple of the goals as well. And that touch of class is just what Arsenal have maybe been missing in that final third at certain points. So delighted to have him back. Got 60, 65 minutes under his belt, I think it was tonight as well, which is great. Remember, he hasn't played any football yet this season. So good for him to get that under his belt and help him get towards his peak condition, that hopefully as soon as possible. Mohamed El Neni was in the team tonight. Mohamed El Neni is Mohamed El Neni. You know, he does what he says on the tin, if you like. He plays the simple passes, played a couple of good defense splitting passes tonight, for which he deserves some praise. Still think he gets found out at the highest level, but, you know, he's a decent squad player. Another player I wanted to mention was Serie Kolasinac, because I know West Brom didn't offer a great deal of threat, but you have to say Serie Kolasinac did okay tonight. Look, I know a lot of us want him to go. A lot of us thought he was headed for the exit door just a few days ago. So to see him in the starting lineup tonight came as a surprise, I think. It came as a shock to me anyway. But he did okay. You know, he did okay. I was calling him Sayed Maldini during the watch-along, because he did really, really well in terms of sort of just getting his body in the right places. And maybe that's something for Serie Kolasinac to think about as he gets on in terms of his years. Not at Arsenal. But Serie Kolasinac could switch his position to a centre back. You know, I know he done that for that role for Schalke a couple of times last season, or a few times, but it was interesting to see him get the nod there. Obviously, Mikel's seen something in training. Pablo Mari needed a bit of a break as well. Probably he's had a torrid first couple of Premier League games this season, so he probably welcomed the opportunity to sit this one out. Talked about Aaron Ramsdale, did I? Did I talk about Aaron Ramsdale? I touched on him briefly, I think. But what I wanted to say about Aaron Ramsdale in a little bit more depth is he looked comfortable. As I said, he made a couple of good stops. But I really like the fact that he looks really comfortable with the ball at his feet. Now, let me make this clear. I don't think Aaron Ramsdale is an Edison. I don't think Aaron Ramsdale is as good as the Manchester City goalkeeper in that department. I don't think Aaron Ramsdale is this goalkeeper who is going to get the ball at the back and he's going to ping brilliant balls out to people and really open defenses up. But just to have a goalkeeper that doesn't put his defenders in difficult spots, that doesn't take too many risks, that will play short when he can, because that's obviously what the manager wants, but also has the presence of mind to understand what the situation is and uses his position from which he can see the entire pitch to, you know, to make sure that he's making the right decision. I think that was a breath of fresh air. Made a couple of good stops as well, and hopefully he can push on. You know, hopefully he can. A lot of kind of mixed opinion over that signing, myself included. Wasn't sure about it, mainly because of the fee. But as I've said to you guys previously, when you're talking about transfers, the fee becomes irrelevant if the player performs. It's as simple as that. So yeah, let's see how he gets on moving forward. I'm sure he'll give Bern Leno a real run for his money. The other player that I wanted to touch on just briefly was Ainsley Maitland-Niles. Got a chance to come on in midfield tonight. Looked quite composed, looked quite comfortable, but in truth, the game was won. The game was done and dusted. And, you know, it's one where I wouldn't be getting too carried away. I've said previously, I'm not sure about him as a midfielder, and I'm still not, but he got a bit of an opportunity to show that tonight. And he might feel that he can force his way into consideration, given that we don't have all that many top class options in the middle of the pitch, especially with Thomas Partey out injured. Nicolas Pepe again got a goal, also instrumental in the lead up to Arsenal's second, where he shot at the post, hit the crossbar as well. So he hit the woodwork twice. I was a little bit worried about Pepe in the early stages of that game, because he seemed to be carrying himself in that way where he looks unhappy. And we've seen that a few times from Nicolas Pepe. We saw it quite a bit last season. But I think actually as the game went on, he started to have more of an impact, and you just kind of started to realize that his demeanor is a bit misleading at times. But look, whatever you say about him, whether he was none of them were bad, but even if he was the worst performing of the forwards tonight, he still impacted the game in a lot of ways. And that's what Nicolas Pepe does. That's what he brings to the table. He does bring goals. He does bring assists, even when his all-round game is not necessarily 100%. So, yeah, lots of positives to take away from this game. And it's the perfect preparation for the big game coming up on Saturday. It's not going to be anything like the game we just played, but, you know, it's good to go into that off the back of a win rather than off the back of another defeat that subsequently would have heaped the pressure further on Mikel Arteta. Arsenal, of course, will face AFC Wimbledon in the third round at Emirates Stadium. That's a huge tie for them. For those of you who maybe are watching from overseas and don't know the history of AFC Wimbledon, check it out because it's a really interesting story. And it's a bit of a fairy tale for them playing somewhere like the Emirates Stadium. So please do check it out. AFC Wimbledon, a club that I got a lot of time for because of how they've come about. So do check out the story. It's fantastic. Not going to bore those of you who already know about it with it now. Right, so those are kind of my initial thoughts on West Bromwich Albion 0, Arsenal 6 in the Carabao Cup. Now is the time for you guys to get your questions in the chat. We'll do around about 10-15 minutes on your questions before we wrap it up. I want to say, first of all, a big thank you to our sponsors, Manscaped, for their continued support of the show. Join 2 million men worldwide who currently manscape. Check out the Lawnmower 4.0. It lasts 90 mins on a full charge. What more do you want? If it takes you 90 minutes to sort out down there, you got a problem, but that's another story for another day. Check out manscaped.com and all their fantastic products. Enter our discount code, which is 90min20, and you shall receive 20% off of your order, as well as free worldwide shipping. Right, let's get some of those questions. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat box. Here we go. And let's take this one from Peppa Pig. Are you surprised at the number of fans that want another midfielder? If Lokonga plays, I like that midfield three with Odegaard and Partey. He looks ready. Yeah, I like the look of Lokonga as well, but I just think you need options at this level. And Lokonga is a player with a lot of raw talent, as we've seen, even in a couple of disappointing performances from the team. But I'm wary of heaping too much pressure on Albert Lokonga because he is so young, because he has got still a long way to go in terms of his development, and because he's a young lad. He's come from another country, another league, which is very different. And I'm just wary of pinning a bit too much pressure on him. I'd like us to bring in another midfielder, but I don't think it's going to happen. I'm starting to feel like if we are going to do one more deal with regards to an incoming, it's probably going to be in the right back position. Camille B says, who is Arsenal's most important player? Auba, Odergaard, Saka, Smith Rowe, Partey, Kieran Tierney. Tonight's performance was a good reminder of Auba's class, but I believe Odegaard is the creative glue we have been missing. Fingers crossed, you know, and it's a signing that I'm really pleased about. I talked about it all summer. But what I don't want to do is get carried away off the back of a win over West Brom's second string. I think it's really important that we temper that a little bit. Sam says, would you start Ramsdale on Saturday? And how many games do you think Arteta needs to win out of the 5 that has been reported to save his job? First of all, I don't believe that report. I think that is the type of report that is the type of thing that a journalist would guess. A journalist will look at the results, look at the games coming up, and will suggest or think or maybe has had a little bit of a hint from somewhere that that's what the manager's got to save his job. It's a pretty safe prediction to make, isn't it? I mean, if Arsenal went 8 games into the season, as we're, you know, after Saturday will be 3 in. If Arsenal went 8 games into the season and hadn't won a game yet, then Mikel Arteta would be on the ropes. Any manager would. Even if you were relegation fodder and you hadn't won a game in your first 8, people would be looking at you, wouldn't they? And wondering whether you're the right man for the job. So I don't think that's come from the club. I really don't. I think that is something that, you know, has been guessed and something that they can turn around and point to if he does get sacked within that time frame and say, look, we told you, when actually is it based off of proper info? I would probably argue it isn't. I don't know. I think that Mikel Arteta is going to get given at least up until Christmas. I said that yesterday on a show and I got absolutely hammered for it. I think that's what he should probably get, given that you didn't sack him at the end of last season and you've given him the whole summer and now this financial backing. You need to let him have until Christmas. Again, people disagree with that. People don't like that. And my opinion is the same as it was prior to the West Brom game, right? This is not a reaction to that result. But I don't think he's sacked after 5 games. I really don't. What else have we got here? Matt Beaumont says, Harry, what do you think of Tottenham? Shit. There you go. Let's say a big hello to Ekene, who's watching us from America. He says, do you think Aubameyang will be boosted by these goals. Absolutely. And what it does is it endears him to the fans again, doesn't it? Because he's been under a lot of scrutiny. There's been some incidents off the pitch that haven't pleased people. And I understand that. I was someone who was really frustrated by him turning up late to the North London derby, going and getting a tattoo and breaking COVID protocol. There was a lot of issues with Aubameyang last season. And we all kind of jumped to conclusions, didn't we, at the start of this season when he was missing due to COVID, that it was maybe something a little bit more than that. But fingers crossed, or thankfully, doesn't appear that it was. Let's take a few more of your questions. I've probably got time for 2 or 3 more. Let's see what we've got here. Let me take this one from Mosley. He says, Harry, I don't know about you. I still don't think we get the ball forward quick enough. Our defenders and midfielders hold on to the ball too long, so forwards stop making runs. I actually thought that was something we did a lot better tonight, though, in terms of getting the ball in behind early, making moves early. I think Martin Odergaard brings that to the side as well. And it's why I think that him and Smith Rowe will probably play quite a bit together. Because as I've mentioned, Smith Rowe maybe sometimes holds on to the ball a little bit too long as well. That's not a criticism of him, because that's the type of player he is. And that's his way of drawing players out of position and then subsequently being able to pick out teammates in good areas. But sometimes you just need to be a bit more direct. Sometimes you just need to move the ball forward that split second earlier. And I think that Martin Odegaard does that very well. And I thought as a result of him being in the side, Arsenal did that a lot better as a team tonight. What else have we got? A couple of you asking about where was it? Where is it? About who might come in. Again, I don't have any information on this. I don't know who is going to come in. I said that I think it would be a right back, if anything. That's just my opinion. It's not based on anything more than that. Nikomo says, are the tweets from the Middle Eastern royalty true? There's been a lot of this, and this is really gathering pace, isn't it, over the last sort of few hours. There's tweets coming out from the Qatari royal family suggesting that they might be interested in taking the club off of the Chronicles, but you have to persuade them to sell. And that's going to take some doing, isn't it, based on their stance with Daniel Ek. But equally, you feel like these guys, if they are serious, would stand a better chance of being able to hit that amount of money or reaching that figure that would make at least Stan Kroenke go, let's think about this. Let's consider this. Daniel Ek is nowhere near as rich as them. He's nowhere near as rich as the Kroenkes. Therefore, it was only ever going to be achievable, wasn't it, if he could do something that would really persuade them. But if they're much richer than you, it's often difficult to force someone into selling something when you can't overpower them financially, especially when they don't want to sell. Equally, though, bringing in new owners is not, it's not as simple as saying get the Kroenkes out and bring someone else in. For example, if Daniel Ek came in, would Daniel Ek have the funds thereafter to invest in the team and take the team to the next level? We've seen, for all their faults, that KSE have made money available to Mikel Arteta this summer prior to making significant strides in terms of moving players out. KSE can do that. KSE can restructure things and can jiggle things around and make something like that happen because they are filthy, stinking rich. Daniel Ek is obviously filthy, stinking rich, but not to that same level. And so, actually, would Daniel Ek come in and be someone who actually can't even put the money in that the Kroenkes do, in which case we might be worse off? Yeah, we'll have someone who has the club's interests at heart and maybe some former player representation in the board as well. But you got to think about these things as well. It's not to say I don't want Daniel Ek to take over. I'd still rather him than KSE. But you've got to consider that as well. It's really, really important, I think. Big shout out to the main man, Mr. Kevin Campbell. He says, Harry, I hope you're well. I think Arsenal seriously need better defenders because the depth is very poor, and against the better side, we're in trouble. But great to see us score 6 as we needed that. Yep, agreed. And I agree with you on the defenders. I think, you play against a better side. Maybe if you play against West Brom's first team, you don't get away with playing, say, Kolasinac at centre-back. It's as simple as that. But big shout out to Kevin, who was on the Sky Sports program tonight, done a fantastic job as always. And we got a cheeky little plug for the Chronicles of a Gooner and the Highbury squad at the start of the show. And I'm sure that wouldn't have happened if Kevin wasn't in the studio. So, Kevin, thank you so much, man. And great to have you in the chat box, as always. Let's see what else. We're going to pick out, I think, one or two more bits before we wrap it up. It's been a long day. It's been a long night. We've been bringing you that live watch along, and now we're doing the post-match podcast so that those of you waking up on Thursday morning have it in your notifications first thing. Let's see what we've got here. Bird says, what do you think of the rumor about Aubameyang to Man City? I don't think there's anything to that. I really don't. I think it's a convenient story for people to write, with Harry Kane having said that he's not leaving Spurs and Manchester City sort of being left in limbo in terms of their striker search. I don't think it's going to happen. Never thought it was on. So not worrying about that one. He didn't look to me like someone that wants out. He didn't look to me like someone that's unhappy. He looked to me like someone who was back doing what he does best and playing with a smile on his face, which Aubameyang, for the most part of his Arsenal career, has done. Seemed like that went away a little bit. I was watching the game with Mike on the watch along earlier on, and we did say that when Lacazette came on and Aubameyang was pushed out to the left, his face almost suggested that he was a little bit reluctant to do that. It was kind of like, well, I've scored a hat-trick through the middle and you're asking me to go to the left now. But, you know, it is what it is. People needed minutes. We needed to make a few changes. And that was that. Let's see what else we've got. Omar says, what would you advise someone who has no power at 1:16 a.m. and is scrambling to watch this show? I would advise you to go to bed and watch it in the morning, mate. But I hope you get that sorted ASAP. Mohammed Adam says, Harry, it feels like this happens every year where we win pressureless games and paper over the cracks. Hope it's different this season. I mean, I know we played against a second string West Brom side, and I know the Carabao Cup is not Arsenal's priority this season, but I wouldn't say tonight was pressureless. I would say that given the circumstances around our start to the season, given that we've lost our first two Premier League games, actually there was quite a bit of pressure on Mikel Arteta and Arsenal to go and deliver tonight. Was it the most difficult task in the world? No. You know, was it a game that you expect us to win? Yes. Was it a game that you expect us to win even more so when you find out that West Brom have rested basically their whole team? Yeah, you know, it is. But I wouldn't say it was pressureless. And sometimes when pressure is really weighing you down in anything that you do, you can mess up even the most simplest of tasks, even things that you would normally say I can do with, you know, my one hand time behind my back. If you're feeling under pressure, if you're feeling stressed, sometimes you can even find those things difficult. So I think Arsenal deserves some credit for being able to kind of zone out of all the talk that's been around over the last week about Mikel Arteta, about certain players, get their heads down, go out there, whatever the caliber of the opponent, and basically, you know, put them to the sword. It was brilliant. Really, really good stuff. Right, I think we are going to leave it there for our post-match reaction show. We'll be back tomorrow and we'll be reacting a little bit more to the game against West Brom. We'll also start our build-up towards that big game on Saturday lunchtime against Manchester City. So lots and lots of Chronicles of a Gooner content coming your way over the next few days. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you've hit that like button if you haven't done so already. Let me just check in where we are in terms of likes. I know I probably drive you mad with this, but it is really important for the channel. We've got 85 on the board at the moment, but there's over 400 of you watching us on YouTube right now. So surely, just surely, we can get that up to at least 150. Come on, hit it now. If you hate Tottenham, hit the like button. If you love seeing Aubameyang score hat-tricks, hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel too. If you're listening via the audios, make sure you leave us a review, especially on Apple Podcasts. We will be back very soon with more. Until then, good night. Ciao.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.